Chris and Deb here from Windover Water. We wanted to say that today is a special occasion. This is our 50th episode. 50th episode.
50? Wow, that sounds like so many.
I remember when we did number 1.
Yeah.
50.
Wow.
Interesting things happening that we cannot tell you about yet, but they're coming up. We hope that you'll follow along for the rest of our adventures.
Whatever they may be.
Whatever they may be. Now here's to 50 more.
Yeah, have a nice day.
We're gonna hold tight and not move around too much for another hour.
Or 3.
What do they call that? Voguing?
A sailboat in the moonlight and June. Wouldn't that be heaven? Oh, heaven just for two. A soft breeze on a June night and June. What a perfect setting for letting dreams come true.
Well, it's adventure day on the good ship Windover. Last night we had a bit of a run-in with some tidal waters here in Georgia and had to get towed off. That was a first for us. It was quite a thing. So the adventure does continue. We're here at, what's the name of this island?
Jekyll.
At Jeckyl Island, which is actually a national park. And Jeckyl Island is noted for some quite historical homes. I guess the rich and famous used to hang out here. So we ought to fit right in. Anyway, the homes are quite beautiful, and apparently there's all kinds of trails and a little bus that'll take you around like a little red train kind of thing, sort of like St. Augustine. So we're going to do a bit of a walkabout today and get off the boat, do a bit of touristy stuff as we promised ourselves on the way back. I think we came through here just shortly after Halloween. It would be probably mid-November, and it was cold as I recall, and it was rainy and just quite miserable actually. The sun broke out just as we got to Cumberland Island. We managed to see a few horses, but this time around it's been pretty much the same. So hopefully today will be a change. It's mile-high skies, a little bit of horsetail, a bit of fluffy cloud in behind me here. But basically I think it's going to be a decent day. There's no rain in the forecast, and we're going to go have some fun. So off we go.
Jekyll Island is where the rich and famous came in the late 1800s.
That's right, in Georgia.
And early 1900s up to 1945 or so. Just till probably it got safe and convenient to fly to other locations that were further away, like the Caribbean or the Bahamas. They could fly in, so this place became a little bit, or the French Riviera. It became a little more, it became obsolete. So, but the architecture here is great, and the homes still exist. So we're going to take you around and show you.
Of course I did.
loving it. It's beautiful.
The opulence, eh? Just crazy the amount of money they must have had.
What did that lady tell us that when they were all here, 5% of the wealth in the United States was here?
And during the Second World War, they abandoned the place because if they all would have shown up in one fell swoop, they could have shut down, the Germans could have shut down the railroads and the banks and everything. So all the money was here. The U-boats were patrolling off the Georgia coast. Yeah.
So what, they wanted to protect their interests?
Yeah, so they were asked to stay home, but they just never came back. Really opulent.
Well, you know, you think of the years, you know, they would have thrown an old building here too.
Yeah, yeah. One of the challenges of sailing in Georgia are the tides. The water here is, generally speaking, quite murky, so it's hard to judge actually how deep it is. Last night was a good example of that, where we drifted on shore, didn't realize how shallow it was closer to shore. The tides are about the height of a grown man, so 5 to 7 feet.
They're 7 feet here.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a very tall man.
This dock we were on here, we decided to go around the inside to stay away from the boat traffic that you can see. You can see all the boat traffic along the back side here. So we decided to bring our dinghy on the inside, and then a kind gentleman came along and cautioned us that we'd better move our dinghy. Here we are a few hours later, we just got back. Look at that. Tides. The state of Georgia is constantly dredging this section of the ICW around Jeckyl Island. It's quite susceptible to silting, and so these great big dredges are doing a lot of work up here. Pretty cool machines. Well, as you all know, we're back in Georgia. We've just come onto a significant sandbar. Now, the chart plotter, if I zoom this out a little bit, let's see here. You can see we're on the magenta line, just slightly off of it, but basically we're on the magenta line. The boat's turned now because of the tide, but basically we've ended up in this river. The river is flowing pretty significantly, and it's flowing out to sea. So if you look behind me here, you can see sort of rapids. Well, that's what Windover is sitting in. We've got very shallow water here, 4 foot 2. Give you a little shot of that here. 4 foot 2 of water. That means right now we're lacking in about a foot of water. We need 5 foot 2 to be afloat. So we're stuck. How you doing, darling?
Pretty good.
Yeah. So the plan.
Dolbo Island, I think, is just right.
It's like buttermilk. This is called Buttermilk Sound. This.
Dolbo Island, I think, was that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is called Buttermilk Sound. This is.
Hooray!
And
we went hard on, eh?
we went hard on it, and you know there's supposed to be like 11 feet of water in here, and it went from 8 to 5. Boom. So there's a great big hump sitting right here, and I should have seen it coming because there are rapids here. So that should have told me something. So when you are motoring through this sort of situation, look for the rapids. I mean, that just means something right there. This is kind of foolish of me not to pay attention to that, but there's the rapids. I mean, they're not standing waves by any stretch, but they're significant rapids. Now the boat is sideways to the water, to the pressure, so there's our dinghy there. It's 90 degrees off the boat, but she's standing up. I almost wonder, you know, if we shouldn't throw an anchor out upstream of us to hold her there, you know, or just stay in the middle of the boat for another 2 hours.
What do you mean in the middle of the boat?
And it doesn't tip over. She's standing on her keel right now.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Bother. Oh, I hate when this stuff happens. Oh, we were going along so well.
Yes, it was going perfect.
We like Georgia. Everybody else is going out and around. And I still like Georgia. Just have to be a little more aware, I guess. Of
I don't like Georgia's horseflies though.
Yeah, they are pretty big.
They're pretty big.
they're all over. Look
They
at
were
the
trying
little...
to steal my lunch. Like,
Yeah.
look at these things here. Look at them. There's a horsefly right there.
A good, healthy Georgia horsefly.
There you go. That's what they look like. So here we sit with the horseflies. We're going to have to wait. Right now it looks like we're going to have to wait about 2 hours for the tide to turn. It's 4'2" now.
It's going to be a half an hour. Oh, it's going to be a few hours.
Well, you know what? The creek where they give us the tidal information for, so that's that little Jones Creek or whatever it was. That's the mouth of Jones Creek, which is way up another creek. So I think we're actually going to see high tide quicker, or the tide turn quicker here than they're going to see it turn up there. So we're going to get the slack tide here very shortly, which means it's going to start turning around. And then it looks like we've not gone down at all. There's still 4'2" below us.
We have to have gone down because of the current so strong. It's pushing.
Well, I wonder how much of the boat's sticking out of the water right now. We're going to hold tight and not move around too much for another hour.
Or 3.
What do they call that? Voguing?
Oh dear.
I think we've got a couple hours to wait before things turn. And then we'll still have to wait for things to rise. So we're going to be here a little while.
Yeah.
You want to play dominoes?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm not worried too much about this. I know we'll come off with high tide. I am worried though that we have to go backtrack now because it's still going to be quite low tide when we leave, and obviously we're going to have to wait for high tide to come through here.
Yeah.
And so we have to backtrack now and find a place to anchor. So
Now we could call Towboat US as well.
I think that we'll be fine. We'll be able to get off. We might as well wait a couple hours and
Yeah.
save that for another time.
Yeah.
2 days in a row.
Oh.
It stinks. Anyway,
Georgia.
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 No peace.
No peace I found.
Anyway, so it's not bad because we're at 4'2" right now. Low tide is an hour away, so I suspect it's not going to get too much lower. I see that the current's already starting to slow down a bit, so we'll get some slack. Then the tide will come in, and we'll all we need is probably another 6 inches under us.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe 8 inches, and we'll be off. But then we have to turn around again. So we're putting us around 7 o'clock, and it probably gets dark around 8. So it gives us an hour to find a place and anchor.
Yeah.
which is, I don't like anchoring past dusk.
Do you miss the Bahamas?
No. I like Georgia actually. This is part and parcel of being in Georgia, and it's really beautiful actually.
Yeah.
So we learn as we go. We should have anchored the last river we saw. We were going to anchor, and we thought, oh, you know what? The flow is going with us. We were doing 6 knots. Let's go just a bit further.
Yeah.
But of course, it's low tide, and in these rivers, low tide means 7 feet or so. That's a lot of water. So
Yeah.
we've
You mean there's 7 feet disappears?
7 feet disappears. Yeah. So really, so we've learned from this, and we've said that we should maybe just kind of, while we're in Georgia, kind of go from maybe 3 hours before high tide to 3 hours after high tide, and then maybe 4, depending on that, and then take an anchor again. It doesn't take us too long to get through Georgia and the bottom of South Carolina.
So we were calculating that we'd be out of Georgia in 2 days.
2-3 days. Yeah.
So it's looking more like 3 or 4 days now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah,
You alright with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Georgia.
Well, I'll challenge you to a game of dominoes.
Okay.
Okay. Georgia still, and another one of the delightful things that we find here are these horseflies. They're massive, and they're like flying teeth.
Aptly named?
Yeah. Anyway, they bite you. You don't want to smile because they're bouncing off your teeth. And I got a couple of them while I was sitting here. You want to have a look at these? Down here. Here's a fly swatter for scale. They're the size of your thumb.
Talk to me.